Good to see you, everyone. My name is Robbie Howell, and today we're going to be taking another stab at improvised world building. But this time we're going to be taking a different approach to it. Something I've noticed in my previous improvised world building sessions is while they are fun and useful and illustrative, they lack a certain overarching cohesion that I think is going to be present in pretty much any example where you might use improvised world building in practice. You're never going to be just creating a single character or a single setting. You're going to be creating a story that has all of these elements in it. And to that end, we are going to be starting what I'm going to call my improvised world building storyboard. The first potentially of many. What this will mean is every episode of this particular series, I will be improv world building a new component of an overarching storyline and building on previous things that I had improv'd out in earlier chapters. For this one, we're going to be doing the setting. Usually a good place to start with. And from there, we're going to be introducing plot elements and characters and events that are happening and all sorts of other fun things. And for each one, I'm going to give myself finite time, a handful of focus words, and see what the hell we come up with. So let's get started. We'll first be generating our focus words. They will be as, I'll look around my camera, as such. Hook, worry, muddled, and government. My goodness, I can already see a couple of ever so cohesive threads starting to occur within that set. My goodness. Okay, and now we're going to be setting our 10-minute timer. For whatever reason, Google removed its little in-browser timer. I really hope that thing comes back because it was very useful. So this one, I don't know if it has like an alert or something when the timer elapses. So I'm going to have to switch back and forth to the window a little bit just to make sure that I don't go overtime. And our timer will be starting in 3, 2, 1, begin. All right, good. I can see it in the upper browser tab. So let's immediately look into here. The focus word that I'm most interested in here is hook. Worry, muddled, and government all kind of go together well. We're going to be probably looking at a bureaucratic society, probably at least semi-modern, dysfunctional, but not dystopic. Because that gets the kind of like, oh, muddled government thing in. Worry, we can talk about impending catastrophe. We could maybe look at like a succession event, but at the same time, that's more of an event rather than the setting. The setting that's kind of a tricky thing about this, is that this particular set of words feels like it's talking about an event within a setting rather than a setting itself. So maybe I shouldn't talk about that. Maybe instead of an impending one, maybe it's like a looming catastrophe, like an ever-present sort of Damocles type deal, like something that always feels like a present threat, but never quite manifests, such that it defines the setting rather than just defining a single chapter of their history, if that makes sense. So we have all of that stuff. Hook is the interesting one. Hook can be brought in a lot of different directions. Obviously, pirates, yeah, herder, pirate government, way. We could go in that direction, but that also feels a little bit silly. What else could hook mean? Hook could also mean like a plot hook. But again, that feels a little more story-oriented than it feels setting-oriented. What else can hook mean? Hook, like fishing. It's like water-oriented fish people. I in a previous game that I created a race of like sea troll type people that their primary weapons were fish hooks. So that's coming to my mind. But I don't want to go off of my previous world building. I want to do something completely fresh here. Muddled is also interesting because maybe I can, when I hear muddled, I think kind of like, you know, muddied at the same time, like muddied waters, you know, which kind of adds into the whole hook idea. Worry is also interesting. I mean, they're all interesting, you know what I mean? Okay, here's a funky one. This is a very weird combination. I could go for the Namazu-e. So I could be kind of fucking up the origin of this myth, but the Namazue, as I understand, is the Japanese conception of a giant catfish kind of at the root of the world that is responsible for earthquakes and such. Almost in like a Jormungandr sense, like the dragon at the root of the world. And the reason I'm thinking of that is because it gets the worry, the impending feel down. Because, you know, like, you have this gigantic deity that you always have to satiate. Deity to placate. That's kind of cool. Did I misspell deity? I did. As well as getting the kind of like muddy waters feel. Hook as like in a fishing context, although catfish you usually stick your hand down your throat to catch them. You noodle that sucker. Government too. I really like this idea of a giant deity that. Pardon me, this was from a previous draft that I was doing. This idea of like a giant deity to be placated. That's pretty cool to me. So let's start by saying that this thing is taking place in like a lowland swamp. And it's a large city built on reclaimed land, Netherlands. Ocean spilling in is a constant threat, but why are they there if there's all this danger, right? Well, the easy one is that the land is really good. So let's say that very fertile with some super valuable local natural resources. If we go with a fantasy setting, maybe we can say it's a magic hub, like a floodplain type dealio, because with floodplains they're obviously quite dangerous in that they flood and they have disease and all that, but it yields some enormous crop growth. Since I'm talking about crop growth, that leads me to believe that this is like a Bronze Age society, because you care a lot, like food is so much more valuable the further back in time you go. So let's say Bronze Age society. Super advanced compared to any neighbors, or maybe that's super, like advanced compared to any neighbors, the dominant force in their area. But we can say that in past were like, well, maybe I'm getting a little too in detail. Like the past isn't very useful for the current setting. I'll say most population are, you know, farmers / serfs. Many others are administrative. Egypt. So an interesting fact is that in kind of the high, in Bronze Age Egypt, a very large proportion of their society were managerial in nature, and it's hypothesized that part of what led to the Egyptian collapse is once the Nile's like the Nile would flood and replenish the resources and like the nutrients of their crop fields, and once the Nile started, eventually the nutrients were so depleted that the Nile could not fully replenish them, and there may have been like 1 or 2 bad crop cycles, and so they produced not as much food as they normally would have, which wouldn't have been a problem, but they had a huge proportion of their society which were non-productive managerial types. And since they couldn't then feed those people, that kind of led to like a chain collapse down their entire societal structure. So that could be an interesting thing too, like complex resource distribution, very large population, and so lots of resources dedicated to management. If we're talking about Egypt, especially if they have this kind of religious angle, we should say giant temple structures, known for its incredible buildings. I know, we can tie this in. Built using the rich sediment of the Swamps fired into the best masonry known to civilization. Back in the day, that was like actually a pretty big thing, is that sort of building material. If we're going with this kind of Namazu-e angle, in these temples, ritual sacrifice of food, not people, to satiate mighty fish deity. And we can say that this controls water and earth. Only reason they don't flood and get wiped out is because it is contented. Maybe it even helps them with building projects or waterworks, like dams, for example, or irrigation. Those are like massive undertakings for any ancient civilization. And what if we say that this deity, let's come up with a name. I'm looking at Egypt. We've referenced Egypt. We've referenced the Dutch. We got to come up with something simple and cool. Hook, worry, model government. Uar. I like that. This deity Uar is complacent and grand. Kind of like catfish feel. And the timer is up. Whew. Okay, let's see what we got. So, we got a grand Bronze Age city built. Why am I reviewing this now? I gotta find some pictures for you guys. One second. Okay, I've just trolled the internet for a couple of images that hopefully will represent a little bit of what I'm talking about. I'll give you a little bit of a tour, and then we'll see where we stand with this little storyboarding experiment for now. Let's begin. So, we have our beautiful Bronze Age city set amidst a backdrop of fertile floodplains with a couple of beautiful trickling rivers wandering their way in. I think that while this does have a bit more of like a palm tree Egypt aesthetic than I would have personally gone for, it is illustrative of what I think would be relatively large urban centers, well-walled, well-developed, fertile trade routes, lots of fields in the background. But also, the civilization is not just going to be defined by its urban centers. It will have backwater hubs that are, again, fairly well developed for a Bronze Age society, but show a lot more of kind of the swampy gnarliness of the area, only barely holding back the greater ocean beyond. Links, as always, to all of these images will be on the document, which I will link in the description of the video down below. Anyways, some of the centerpieces of this civilization will be its mighty temple structures, all dedicated to their fearsome god Uar. This one, again, is a little too Middle Eastern for my taste, but the building itself has a beautiful kind of Burmese feel to it, which I really dig, and I think is a great compliment to the kind of Dutch-Egyptian thing that I have going on so far. I also found, I was trying to find images that are representing things that are largely flatland with distant mountains, kind of showing how this artificial valley is like ringed in by a plain of mountains that kind of like separate it off from the rest of the world, first of all, but also kind of show how they were able to dredge out this big section of lowland, making the nearby hills look like mountains in comparison to how far below sea level they are here. And I think that this and the above images do that pretty well. But anyways, these temples are all to satiate the wants of their mad god Uar, who, perhaps mad isn't the right word. He is known to be destructive, though, and as this lovely depiction of the Namazu illustrates, is more than a little bit maniacal in nature. I envision Uar as being greedy and indulgent and focused on earthly matters, and if he is not contented with food and similar, he will simply twitch his little tail and rack the area with earthquakes, destroying all of the dikes and water supports that are keeping away the ocean and obliterating this civilization off the face of the earth. I'm pretty happy with that. In fact, now that I'm reviewing everything, I'm really happy with what we managed to get to with this particular set of focus words. I think that we have the focus words fairly well encapsulated. We might be able to sneakily weave those into future sections of this little series as well. Overall, I think I will give my work on this particular one a B+. I don't think I perfectly hit the focus words, but I do think that we managed to create a very cohesive and really cool feeling sort of location that definitely has the impending doom feel while still being a setting rather than an event within a setting. But that's just what I think. I'd love to hear what you guys think about this upcoming improvised world building storyboard project. What other topics do you want to see me tackle now that we have a setting established? Do you want to see me do a couple of events? Maybe some history of the area? More about Uar himself? I just realized we didn't come up with a name for the civilization, but that's fine. Not all civilizations need to be named immediately, and I'm sure one will present itself in time. So please, down below, tell me what other aspects of this region you'd like to see me cover in future videos. Tell me what you think of my build. How might you have used the focus words differently? Do you think that I actually did them justice in my particular build? And overall, what do you think of the setting? Do you find it to be relatively creative and engaging? And if not, or if you think it could be improved in some areas, I'd love to hear your opinions. I always love reading your comments, so please do share your thoughts. Leave a like for me, subscribe if you'd like to see more of this and the other assorted content I put out. But until next time, my name has been Robbie Howell, and ciao for now.